like to call this meeting to order for the Geneva Historic Preservation Commission for Tuesday, November 17th, 2020. I have a statement to read before we get started. Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled November meeting of the Geneva Historic Preservation Commission. I am Paul Zellmer, the chairman of the commission. In order to help reduce the background noise, I would remind all commissioners to mute themselves except when they are addressing the commission or an applicant. The Historic Preservation Commission function is to listen to the testimony presented by an applicant and others with an interest in any of the case before us. The commission hears pertinent evidence from the applicants and virtual audience, determines the facts based on evidence and testimony, considers and deliberates among themselves, and then makes a determination in accordance with the ordinance, standards, policies, guidelines as adopted by the Geneva City Council. This meeting will be conducted by video conference, usually utilizing the GoToWebinar virtual platform. With our use of an electronic meeting platform for this meeting, we expect there may be some technical difficulties as we move through our agenda. Please bear with us. The meeting will proceed without a physical present quorum in the Historic Preservation Commission because of the disaster declaration related to COVID-19 and public health concerns affecting the city of Geneva. With the exception of the limited city staff and myself, all commissioners and applicants participating in tonight's meeting are in different locations in accordance with social distancing guidelines. It is important that the cases scheduled for tonight be heard in order to continue city business and without delay to the applicants. Moving forward will enable ongoing construction development, protection of property values, and preservation of historic resources, and promotion of the city's economic vitality. Every individual desiring to listen and or participate in the meeting has been provided the opportunity through virtual participation information, including various public notices and the agenda for this meeting. At this point, I will describe the remote proceedings of Historic Preservation Commission for those who are not familiar with the process. For each item on the agenda this evening, our preservation planner will make a brief presentation regarding the specific interest. The petitioner will then make a presentation of their proposal, and the members of the Historic Preservation Commission may ask questions of the applicant. Public participants may provide comments either through written comments or by speaking at the meeting, and each person will be provided an equal amount of time to comment. When it is time for a public comment, staff will read through the record of any comments received in writing in advance of the meeting. Following the reading of any written comments, members of the virtual audience who wish to speak will be asked to raise their hand through virtual meeting platform hand-raising feature. Audience members will then be called on, unmuted, and given an opportunity to comment. After providing comment, each speaker will be muted once again. Please note that there is a slight delay between becoming unmuted and being able to begin to speak. All comments will be recorded so that written minutes can be prepared of this meeting. Just a reminder to all speakers are asked to present their comments in a respectful and courteous manner. If inappropriate language or comments are expressed during the meeting, the speaker will be muted and the speaker's participation will be ended. Tonight, for the benefit of those in the audience, I'm joined by Preservation Planner Michael Lambert and City Planner Chayton True. Mr. Lambert, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Chairman. Commissioner Zinke? Commissioner Zinke?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Warner?
Here.
Commissioner Stazen?
Here.
Commissioner Solomon?
Here.
Commissioner McManus?
Here.
Commissioner Hartman?
Here.
Chairman Zellmer?
Here.
We have a full quorum.
Thank you. We shall proceed. Okay. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes for October 20th, 2020. Does anyone on the commission have any comments about the meeting minutes that were presented?
Just one.
Go ahead, Commissioner Warner.
I believe there's a capitalization missing on page 4 of 55. I'm having trouble locating it. It's minor. It's let me find it. Page 4 of 55. Last sentence of the fourth paragraph, the picture window.
David,
Yes?
I'm trying to find the section that you're trying to correct, and I can't find it. What section is it in?
It is section 5. Page 2 at the bottom, it says, of the minutes.
Okay, and it's page 2, section 5, and paragraph,
4, last sentence, the picture window.
okay, yeah, the should be capitalized. Okay. Any other comments about the,
And no other comments from me.
okay. Caroline, did you have a comment?
No, I did not, thank you.
Okay. If barring any other comments, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as presented with a single typographical edit.
And I'll second.
Carolyn, second. Okay.
Commissioner Zinke,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Warner,
Aye.
Commissioner Stazen,
Abstain.
Commissioner Solomon,
Aye.
Commissioner McManus,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Chairman Zelmer.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the review of conceptual development applications. The first one is 516 Franklin Street. You can take it away,
Not advancing.
Michael.
It's not
He
advancing.
is,
Not advancing.
you're not advancing? Let's see. Is there a way to
We're not advancing.
What's the matter?
We're not advancing. Oh, there we
there
go.
we go, just click in the middle of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Zelmer, on two fronts. The first case before you is 516 Franklin Street, which is a concept review for a proposed construction of a new second-floor addition at a contributing property. The owners are Laura and Blake Croson, and the architect is Sean Gallagher. The property is located in the southwestern corner of the Central Geneva Historic District, which is listed in the National Register of Historic Places. It's also in the southwestern corner of the local Geneva Historic District. As described in the staff report, the Wilbur Baker Croson House was moved to this site around 1912 and was remodeled into a simplified craftsman cottage. The proposal before us is to take the existing house and to add a second floor master bedroom addition above the existing garage. The lot coverage is not going to change as evidenced in the submitted site plan, and the roof plan shows that the new ridge is slightly lower than the historic ridge of the existing home. On the upper left is an image of the existing conditions, and on the lower right is the proposed addition. As noted in the staff report, the addition is differentiated in modest architectural forms. It does not try to replicate the gable, for instance. However, it does respect the rhythm of the historic fenestration with narrow flanking windows on either side of a larger central window. The proposed addition would raise the ridge above the existing garage, which is an addition to the house, as pointed out earlier, and the roof over the addition, over the dormer, is a metal roof, but again, based on the earlier sketch, is not highly visible from the street compared to what you see in an elevation view. The east elevation is not highly visible from the street due to a mature tree line on the east property line. However, the existing condition is shown on the upper left and the proposed condition on the upper or lower right. And although this is beyond the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission, just for orientation, this is the proposed rear elevation with the addition at the lower right and the existing conditions at the upper left. Pointing out that how the plan was developed to respect the historic architecture, the addition, the furthest northern portion of the addition is set back slightly from the deepest recess of the historic facade. So the new addition does not project forward of the historic house in any way. So that is the case. At this point, we can turn it over to Blake Croson, who is the owner, who would like to make a few comments, and then followed by Sean Gallagher, his architect. And I can move slides back and forth for you.
Can I ask a question, please?
Should we let Blake?
Would you like to let the applicant speak first and hold your question?
No, actually, it's a question about the meeting. Is there a way where everyone's photo can be on my computer screen? Because I can only see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us.
I think that's all that has video. I don't believe that Lisa McManus has her video on, so that,
Okay.
and it's only the commissioners that will have the video. That's correct.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Croson, the floor is yours.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
We can.
Any echo?
No, you're pretty good.
All right, great, appreciate it. Yeah, I guess I should start, Caroline, by saying I put on a sport coat, expecting to be on webcam for all of you tonight. So apologies there. Just wanted to briefly introduce ourselves to you all. My name is Blake Croson. My wife, who is also here with me, Laura Croson. We just moved into the neighborhood in the last month, really. Relocated here to Geneva just from St. Charles, where we were for 6 years. Prior to that, we had a lovely 115-year-old bungalow home in the downtown Wheaton area. And when we moved to St. Charles, we really fell in love with Geneva. I grew up in Glen Ellen, also in an older home. And just the charm of the town, the shops, the restaurants, and this home in particular, were very endearing to us. In addition to my wife and I, we do have 2 young children, 5 and a 3-year-old, and potentially, plans on expanding our family in the not too distant future. So for us, we want to be as respectful to the town, the community, the history of the property specifically. And that's kind of what drew us to Gallagher, having seen some of his work in the downtown Geneva area, and his delicate touch, I believe, in expanding some historic homes in the downtown area.
Thank you. Did you want to, should we let Sean, do you want to present? Why don't we let Sean speak about the project and then we'll start with questions.
So, can you all hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Right. And is there a lot of feedback or ringing?
A terrible echo.
No, not bad. Not
Okay,
terrible.
good. I first, I just want to thank you all for accommodating us this evening, and also for this opportunity. I am really excited about this project. It's a unique opportunity to almost sort of create a little Swiss watch. This house has this 1-story frame addition, and this frame addition is modern. By that, I think Michael, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but it's somewhere in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. It has a conventional crawl space, conventional cast foundation wall, all of that good stuff. So we have the bones that can accommodate a second floor for this. And so we've designed this to work with a front bonus room and then a rear master suite. And we're all the while working around an existing chimney that kind of pokes up through this. I'll go through the list of sort of approaches or thoughts as we develop this project. First with materials. We are matching the existing wood siding that's on the more modern addition. So this is a lap wood siding. And then what we're also doing is we're picking up some of the details of the original house with sort of a thickened or a deeper rake frieze, as well as a cornice board. When you look at some of the elevations, you'll see that. We are also using shingles to match existing. And then the standing seam roof, when we come back to you, we'll come back with the color for that. But all of the shingles that you see are simply matching existing. We are saving, so when you look at that perspective and you look at the front elevation there in the photograph on this particular slide, the fascia line that is currently there, that's staying. All we're doing is we're tweaking the pitch of the roof so that we can actually get up to just shy of the main ridge. You'll notice on the east side, there's 2 different pitches to the roof line. I've got to get my ridge, and Mr. Hartman, you'll appreciate this being a carpenter. I got to get these folks into the addition. The height of this house from first floor to ridge is under 20 feet. So we're actually threading the needle through a bathroom in order to get into this addition on the second floor. So that ridge line actually correlates with the entry from the original house into the addition. So as far as mass and scale, the idea of the dormer, we played with dormers that had gables facing the front, and we've had conversations with Michael, and it was just too similar to the front of the house. So we decided to work with a shed, which actually works nice, because what I did was I created kind of a double tier element to play off of the massing of the original house, right? So you've got this slightly larger mass that makes up the bank of windows, and then it steps back. The front of this, as Michael mentioned, does not actually come forward of the original house. So this is actually, that dormer is set back behind it. There will be a pan cut into this, a sort of inverted dormer. That pan probably will end up being either a pre-finished aluminum or copper. We'll work with the contractor to decide that. As far as scale, the idea of breaking this dormer into 3 pieces was key. To do a full-length dormer across here, all one big block of a shed, just would be too big, too beefy for this. As well, if you look at the elevations of the new, and Michael, maybe you could scroll to the new front elevation. Thank you. What I've done is I've centered the dormer on the garage door. Now the garage door is actually slightly off center. So I wanted to make sure though that we kept the windows of the dormers centered on the original or on this door below. And to Michael's point earlier, just as a nod to the original house, I have tripled the windows such that it kind of plays off the original house in that lower bank of double hungs where you have a wider double hung and flanking smaller ones, but in this case they're ganged together or mulled together into a kind of a single bank of windows for that front bonus room to look out over the street front. As far as tectonics or architectural elements, of course we're using double hungs, playing off of the existing double hungs. Center double hungs with the flanking smaller ones as a nod to the front elevation. Trim, the trim that we're going to be using is a wood trim, and the trim will be casing to match existing casings on the more modern garage edition, but then using a deeper cornice as well as rake cornice board or rake freeze board to play off of the deeper rake freeze boards on the original house, or what we're going to be doing for that. What else? Yeah, so I've essentially covered materials, massing, scale, and the architectural elements that make up this addition. You can see how it's composed in the plans, and of course the elevations, you're seeing this front elevation, and as best as I could with giving the Crosons as much opportunity. Now, of course, we could have brought this farther if we could bring this all the way to the front of the garage door, right? But in terms of respecting the original house, I wanted to make sure that we held back from the original house. So that's our story, and we're sticking to it. So anyway, if you have questions, either Blake or I would be happy to answer them.
Just raise your hand if you have any comments about the proposals.
Michael, could I ask something?
Sure.
Sure.
You had said that this house got moved here.
Yes.
Is that for sure? Because this house is top to bottom telephone tile.
The information we received at the Geneva History Museum, and from looking at the variety of lumber in the first floor framing when the previous applicant was before us, we know this house was not here in 1911, but it was there by 1913 when Charles Moore moved to Denver, Colorado. So what we believe from what we know of the history of this house is this was built for 2 school teachers, moved here and remodeled for the 2 school teachers as a modest home, and that's the record that we've been able to uncover at the Geneva History Museum.
It just seems unusual that somebody would build a house out of telephone tile and then relocate it to a spot and do a full foundation out of telephone tile. It just seems like the timing is so tight to building it and then moving it, but it could very well be. It's an unusual house. It's the first time I've worked on a house where it's telephone tile from top to bottom. So
what is interesting about the house, and we have no way of proving it, but as you know, the kitchen addition behind the west original wing is also built of the clay tile. And we suspect that there may have been a fire concern of someone who lived here, but there are elements of the central portion of the house that appear to be a mid-19th century home and not an early 20th century home. Again, if you look at the basement, you'll see there's some vertical sawn lumber, and then right next to it, you'll see circular sawn lumber. So the house has been, is an older house at the core, but that's been remodeled at least once in a significant way.
You're like a forensic guy. You're like the Quincy of architecture, Michael.
It's all what you see. It lets the building speak for itself.
Okay, Mr. Warner, you had a comment?
I did. First, Blake and Laura, welcome to Geneva and welcome to the neighborhood. Sean, I guess as far as the storytelling goes, I like it very much. I think you described what it is that I like about it. Not being an architect myself, I couldn't I couldn't have described it that way myself, but I like the symmetry, the vocabulary, if you will, what you've done with the windows. It's very tastefully, it's a very handsome design. I commend you all with that. My question, and I also want to thank staff for the work that you've done in setting this up. My question is for you though, Michael, and that is, what of the 1912 structure really remains other than the massing and the window locations? Is what's left there that we're looking at in the new rendition?
The main facade of the historic house is pretty much what you saw in 1912. The east side had a porch added to it that was taken off to put the garage on in the 1980s. The stucco, the house was stuccoed when it was put here in 1912. The window arrangement is the historic window arrangement with the exception of the front door, which was relocated from the east side when the garage was added. The only thing that's not original in its massing and overall character is, again, as pointed out, the previous applicant had requested putting on some brackets and some window lintels that the commission had requested to be put on in a fashion that could be removed if ever was desired in the future. But otherwise, what you're seeing at the street front is pretty much what you would have seen 108 years ago. I can't speak for the interior because I don't remember the interior that well, but the exterior street facade is pretty much what you would have seen in 1912, with the exception of the garage.
Okay. Great.
Other
Lisa,
questions?
What's that, Mr. Warner?
No other comments, thank you.
Okay. Lisa, you had a comment?
Yeah, more comment than question. I think when we're reviewing projects like this, it's just important to make sure that we can still recognize the original home and make sure that thought has been given to maintaining those elements while still allowing the homeowner to move forward with their lives and their design. I feel like this has done a nice job of that. Maintaining that original facade, setting some of those new elements back so that they're not competing with that original form. I think that's important. That dormer doesn't compete with that front gable. I think that it's still a nice job of presenting a design that, while it does what it needs to do for the homeowner, is also one that maintains that original form and something we can still recognize.
Very good. Caroline, you had a comment?
Actually, this is really more for Michael. Michael, I find this very interesting because I was on the commission back in 2017 when the exterior was changed, maybe not dramatically, but certainly was a massive improvement. It had sort of that Swiss chalet sort of look. You probably remember that.
Yes.
And those owners there removed that. And then we did have a long conversation about the lintels of the roof and the other detail. And it's interesting to have it come back another time and have another homeowner make more improvements on the building. And I just find that interesting.
Do you have any issues with the design as, the concept as presented? Carolyn?
No, not at all. I think this is going to be a very good addition to that block.
Okay. George, or do you have any comments about this?
I'm fine.
Okay. Mr. Stazen?
I think, comment-wise, it's a nice expression, and I'm pretty much in agreement with Sean on this. I think it is a straightforward solution.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, George.
And Don, do you have any comments?
Just briefly, I mean, I'm in agreement with everything. Sean, I think it's an excellent job of what you've done here. I mean, thinking layman's terms, I don't see an addition when I look at these drawings. It looks like it's has been there before, and I think that's a good goal that you've reached.
Thank you. And are you still framing? Can we bring you in?
Unfortunately, I am still framing.
Very good.
Very good. Okay. The only I look at this and I reiterate what the commissioners have said. I think it's a very nice solution, and it's interesting that in our packet we have the south elevation also, and it's by doing the north elevation the way you did, and if you look at the south elevation, you see what it could have been, and I really, you did a great job of putting that together so that you could work with that. Because the back of the building, which is fine, and I know you got to deal with egress and windows and things like that, that was a good solution of breaking up that dormer so that you could break up the mass of that dormer. So I applaud you on that. What is the rear slope of that, Sean, of that metal roof?
Yeah, we're just under an inch.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a metal roof altogether in order to pull that off.
Sure. I think it's a fine thing, and I haven't heard any complaints or no comments about this, so I think you're in the right place, and we look forward to seeing how you do on the permit selection of this, the permit set of this. Does that give you enough information? Since we were glowing about your project.
It's very helpful. We appreciate your feedback on this. Blake, do you have any closing, or Laura, do you have anything to close with? I'm good.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all for your time and consideration. It's been a pleasure just getting to this point, and we're excited about moving forward.
Yes, thank you, Blake, for coming to the neighborhood. And I actually live over on 6th Street, so I'm pretty close. We're neighbors with you, and I'm glad to see that you're making this a house that you can live with and keep the scale of the neighborhood to what it is. Thank you.
Beautiful, thank you.
With that, I think we're on to our next item on the agenda, which is the review of permit applications, 418 Ford Street.
Thank you, Chairman Zelmer. 418 Ford Street is a permit review for the replacement of existing non-historic windows at a contributing property. The owner contractor is Tom Whitmore. The property is located in the North Geneva Historic District. It's listed in the National Register of Historic Places. It's also located in the far northwestern corner of the local Geneva Historic District. The Freeman Wetmore House was built around 1896 or 1897 for Magna and Mary Freeman. The house remained in that family until the mid-1940s. From 1953 roughly to about 1990, the house was remodeled several times to convert it from a single-family home to a multi-family home, with the conversion also of the attic space to a livable space. At that time, attic gable windows were replaced, the historic windows were replaced with the present double-hung windows that exist up in the gable area. With the exception of 2 windows, all of the windows in the historic home have been replaced over time, and so the request is actually to replace replacement windows with a more appropriate window. So just going through the program a little bit, on the east elevation, there are 3 windows that are under the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission on the first floor. They're highlighted with the red rectangles, and they're identified in your window survey that was in your packet as windows E8, E9, and E10. You can see from the images that those windows are indeed not historic or original windows. On the second floor, there are 2 that are under the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission, and those are identified in your packet as E4 and E5. Again, those are replacement windows. The reason the second floor window on the east side of the bay window is not under consideration is that window is not scheduled to be changed out. That one has been replaced previously. The windows at the rear of the east facade are beyond the first architectural break, and we do not review architectural changes beyond the first architectural break of a facade. On the north side, the window shown with a yellow rectangle is one of the existing historic windows that is being preserved. You can see it's a leaded glass window labeled as W1 in your packet and on the drawings. And the window at the on that side that is also being requested to be replaced is an existing replacement double-hung window that's being requested to be replaced with a casement window with a false check rail. Again, for those who aren't familiar with that term, that means it is not a real double-hung window, but it is a window that is framed and detailed to look like a double-hung window, but it's actually a casement window. So you don't have the deep shadow line. This window is far recessed back on the west side of the, on the far southern end of the west elevation, so it's not a highly visible window in this location. On the primary facade, all the windows are proposed to be replaced except for the first floor decorative window, which is identified as N4 in your packet. It's one of the 2 historic windows that has remained in the home from the original date of construction. On the second floor, both of the second floor windows are scheduled to be replaced. They are replacement windows as well. They're labeled as N2 and N3 in your packet in the window survey that was submitted. As I said, the upper gable was heavily remodeled when it was converted to living space, and so the owner, the Illinois State Historic Preservation Office, and I have been in conversations over the last several months to come to some kind of agreement on a window pattern that would be sensitive to the historic home and yet provide the required code compliant egress out of that attic level. This is being done under the provisions of a tax assessment freeze program. So Darius Brica, who is the state project reviewer for tax assessment freeze projects in Geneva, has been heavily involved in communication between the owner and myself on this issue. What has come out of this is a solution to provide an egress window at the center with 2 small flanking windows on either side, which is reminiscent of the triple type of window that would have been found in this era of free classic Queen Anne home, and yet meets ventilation and egress requirements. So that is the summary of where the windows are being replaced. A quick example of, one picture has seemed to have gone missing. A quick example of what the windows look like. The windows are proposed to be 1/1 double hungs with aluminum exterior cladding. I believe the color is to be white to match the kind of the trim color that's on the house now. On the right is the ultimate clad casement window with a dummy check rail showing what that would look like. And then in the picture that's missing, that has disappeared from the presentation, is just from the Marvin window and door catalog. It's their simulated divided light that shows that where there are divided muttons, as in the attic window, they would be both at the interior and exterior of the glass with a spacer bar in between the glass, which meets our window policy. So that ends the presentation, and I believe that Mr. Wetmore is available and he can answer any questions or add to the details of the window replacement program. Tom?
Thanks, Michael. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
All right, great. Yeah, thank you, Michael. That was a great introduction. My name is Tom Wetmore. My wife and I are the owners of 418 Ford Street, and we're looking to replace some old crummy vinyl windows. I think for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. We're getting rid of some 1990s vinyl windows that need to be replaced, replacing almost all of them with double hungs in what the state has requested, the Signature Series by Marvin. And the only two exemptions that we're looking for is change the second floor bathroom to a casement window with a false check rail, so it looks like a double hung, but we'll have more free opening. And then the front gable, the way that Michael was recommending it, with that casement in the middle so we can get egress, and the two flanking casements to give it that period century charm. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Anyone want to?
Actually,
Go ahead, Carolyn.
yeah, actually, I'm looking at your window schedule. I had two things I wanted to say. We have, as a commission, we have talked with other applicants for the past several years about window replacement, and it is such a pleasure to see that you did a schedule of all the windows, and you put them on a nice chart for us, and you explained which windows you were replacing and why. And so thank you very much for all of that information. I personally really appreciate that. The second thing I wanted to ask, as I'm looking at your chart, there are a number of windows that you are saying are in poor condition, but you are not changing them, unless I misunderstand. When you say, for example, that the proposed material in the proposed material chart, no change, do you mean that window is not going to be changed, or does that mean that the new window going in that spot will have the same material that is being replaced?
Yes, thank you. For the first one, you'll have to thank Michael. He asked for the schedule, and so he's the one that helped us out and get organized, of course. I'm really surprised there. For the second one, you are correct. I am not planning to change the windows that say no change. And the reason is that I am planning to do a future project, an addition, and those windows will be impacted by that. The current timeline is not now to do that project. I have some kids I need to get out of daycare, and I need to save some money first, but that is why I'm not changing those windows.
Ah, okay. So then I guess in a few years, we'll be seeing you again.
That's the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, did you have a comment?
Not really. I was just going to say that I was going to ask whether you had considered making the upper windows, because I think the window to the left of the front door is one of those leaded glass windows, right?
Yes.
And then the two above it, was there any consideration in doing something like that, or something with maybe some simulated divided lights in those windows?
Well, I had not considered any grill patterns or leaded glass in any of the windows. It's not something that we really, I don't know, entertained at all. And I don't know that it needs it if it's going up over and above what would typically be in this house by doing, we've got the stained glass window on the east elevation. We've got the leaded glass on the north, the front elevation on the first floor. And now we're going to do the divided light detail on the north gable. I just didn't know if we needed to continue to add more detail.
Well, it's certainly, in my opinion, to be acceptable to replace a double hung without them with a double hung without them. I was just wondering, only because it seems I appreciate what you're doing on the third level in bringing in some Queen Anne details with the three windows, kind of like that pseudo Palladian theme that would typically be present. So I think that's a nice detail. I was just wondering about the second floor. That's all.
I would just like to say that one of the characteristics of a free classic Queen Anne is that it's a transitional style between the pure Queen Anne and the colonial revival, which was, again, a much more regimented, organized style. And typically, one of the characteristics of a classic, free classic Queen Anne is that they will have these occasional decorative windows, typically on staircases and front parlors. And then the other decoration really goes to the gable. The rest of the house is usually fairly simple, which I think is what has been replicated here with the original replacement windows and what Mr. Wetmore is doing. The state, just again, because this is a tax assessment freeze program, the state believed that the window patterns were appropriate for, again, a free classic Queen Anne. So I think that's a good point that you have raised, Commissioner McManus, but I think that for the general character of a free classic Queen Anne, that the 1/1s is fairly typical on upper levels and not in a major room.
Mr. Warner, Commissioner Warner?
Yeah, I thank you for the survey. It makes our job a whole lot easier. The fact that you're replacing replacement windows makes it easier, and the fact that Darius Bryka from the state is involved, I really have no objections. I do have one question. Why is the casement window being used? Is that for egress?
At which window?
And which window at the gable end there?
Yeah, the casement with the false check.
Oh, at the bathroom.
Oh,
I don't know if you could hear Mr. Wetmore. I know there was a little bit of static, but he said that he was using the casement window there just to have more free opening to give more ventilation to that bathroom.
Okay. And then just one passive comment. I was wondering what the inspiration for the Palladian arrangement was, and I recalled what the attic windows in the gable of the Bliss homestead had, and I was able to use just drop the guy on Google Maps on the corner of in Sugar Grove on Bliss Road and Merrill Road. They have an identical three window arrangement as you've depicted there. It's almost identical. So if you're not familiar with that house, you could drive by on Bliss Road, and it seems very appropriate to me.
great. Thank you. Any other, Mr. Hardman, do you have any comments?
No, I do not.
Okay. And Mr. Stazen? Okay, and Mr. Solomon?
I'm good.
Okay, I agree with, the other commissioners. I think that it's really nice to see a complete package come together, and it's easy to understand, and it's easy to review when you follow the rules. We really appreciate that, and it makes it easy to approve also, I think. And the fact that you're going from a vinyl window back to a wood window is a pretty easy to approve also. So with that, is there someone that can put together a motion to approve this?
I move to approve the window replacement at 418 Ford Street. Right?
As presented.
As presented?
As presented.
Great. And can I get a second?
With second?
Mr. Hartman? Okay. Call the roll.
Commissioner Zinke,
Yeah, yes.
Commissioner Warner,
Aye.
Commissioner Stazen,
Aye.
Commissioner Solomon,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman. Did you say aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner McManus,
Aye.
Chairman Zelmer.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Motion passes. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
All right,
Moore.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we're on to our next item, which is the secretary's report.
At this time, I have no updates for the commission.
Okay, next we have new business from the commission. Any comments or questions from the commission?
Excuse me, I have a question for Michael. Michael, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Carolyn.
Okay. The house on, the house that you and I chatted about by email about the replacement windows last week.
At 615 or 516 James Street.
516 which street?
James Street.
Yeah, James Street. Can you tell us what has happened in that situation, please?
Sure, I'm glad to do that. What has occurred at that property is that Commissioner Zinke noted that the windows were being installed at the front facade not in exact conformance with what had been approved by the commission. I reported that to our code enforcement officer and our building official, and they did a temporary stop work order on the project. Mr. Schmidt, who is the contractor, explained that that window had already been on order, and so it was being installed, and then provided us with a verification of the order from Marvin Windows that new sash were being made per the commission's requirements, and those are on their way. But they wanted to get the window jambs and get the building sealed up before cold weather hit, and they will replace the sash as soon as they arrive here in Geneva. I did confirm with the contractor and the supplier that that window had indeed been ordered, or the windows had indeed been ordered, and that they will be installed when they arrive. So it will be the look that we had approved at the commission. But thank you for keeping an eye on the district.
Okay, and thank you for that update. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Okay, any other comments from the commission? Okay, any comments from the public? I don't think we have anyone on. Nope. No hand raised. Okay, with that, I'd get a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
And can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. We are adjourned.